GeoPartners software, which we had and no longer do, I did some preliminary research on the costs for various projects and tried to divide it between the 5 supervisorial districts. And this is just basic. It's not ground tested, and it's based on their own models of providing wireless services or mixed wireless services. More or less, you can just draw a polygon around a region, and it will calculate route miles and estimated costs. So I think these numbers are not accurate, and if they, I mean, it's based on 72,000 per mile to deliver costs, and that is probably based on less inflated costs. I think that inflation has driven up costs in the last year or so, and it's national averages rather than California costs. So take these numbers with a grain of salt. It was just for a baseline, but we took the priority areas that were identified in work that the consortium and Broadband Alliance had previously done, and then added a few additional areas so that it could balance out across supervisorial districts, bringing, and this, I wasn't able to take out middle mile routes. So these cost estimates would actually include a lot of miles that will be taken care of in the middle mile. But this was just to get a rough estimate of what it would cost to deliver wirelessly to the least connected regions of our county to a large degree. And so here is a list of various projects that we could consider. And it comes to 69 million. Again, if you take out the middle mile, I believe that it would be 57 million or less. But again, take the numbers, the dollar amounts with a grain of salt. Additionally, on the other side is a list of broadband grant opportunities with links to all of them. And I see Katie has raised her hand, so I'd love to answer her question.
On this preliminary last mile project research, you have definitely more than 9,000 households. If you go to the bottom of your list here, it's got 27,000 households. Where's the difference?
Well, I think that this is actually calculating the number of households within each of those projects. So not all of them would be, some of them are served.
Okay, are we only counting in the 9,000? Is that only unserved? Because what about underserved?
And I mean, that's a very good question. The lists, they're constantly changing the standards by which they determine whether or not a house is eligible. And the information that we are being provided is like volunteered information versus ground tested information. So I think that the GeoPartners software does calculations based on like financial viability of a project rather than eligibility of the households, and that's why we have the differential numbers. We're seeing all of the houses within the region and not just the eligible households. So, but an eligible household would be any household that is not receiving 100 megabits per second down and 20 megabits per second up.
They're almost none. They're almost none in Mendocino County.
Right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think that even maybe 80% of Comcast subscribers don't necessarily get 100 megabits per second down and probably don't get 20 megabits per second up. And they
you have to pay
the most
Jeff,
robust service.
I'll just say on the sorry to interrupt, on the Comcast, you have to pay extra just to get 10 up.
Right. Right. So 29,000 households is pretty much every, I mean, I think there might be 35 or 40,000 households in the county. And so within these regions, which include all of Ukiah and all of Willett, I think, are major, and Fort Bragg too, perhaps. We have nearly every household accounted for, or 80% of the households fell within some of those potential projects. But this was just for a baseline and it's just for purposes of discussion.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure where we are on the agenda. I'm going to quickly go back up. I think we're still on last mile, and I guess we're transitioning. We would transition into CASIF and LADA, or Local Agency Technical Assistance Grant. So
Go ahead.
I leave it to the chair.
Before, Jeff, before we leave,
Certainly. Yes.
those grant eligibilities, who is and how is it being determined if we go after one over another, or are we planning to just go after all of them and hope for the best?
Well, I think that the next steps are applying for the consortium grant through CASIF and
Okay.
doing the work on that, is as well as the local agency technical assistance grants to I don't know, work on feasibility studies and environmental studies and help prepare these to make them more viable. But when it comes to the last mile applications, various entities are independent actors, and
Okay.
we're meeting with AT&T and we're meeting with Comcast. We have had meetings and need follow-up meetings
Okay.
with them and all other providers to understand what their plans are, to know whether or not we don't have an applicant necessarily for these projects. We have the JPA with Golden State Connect Authority. So we're going to be doing some preliminary grant preparation utilizing LADA funds and CASIF funds to make these more viable. But it is an open question as to who the applicants would be for these projects.
Okay, that was closer to where I was trying to go with the question. The county work is mostly funded already and just waiting to be done, or does more need to happen there?
More definitely needs to happen, and Calvin and Mike and I were just on the consortium's management team meeting earlier today, talking about the LADA and CASIF grant applications to help the county do this work. I think that the county will be the LADA applicant, and the consortium we're trying to organize which studies will be conducted by which entities.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
Certainly. And so we're now on to the next item on the agenda, which is the CASIF timelines. And there are various CASIF grants that are becoming available. And I can't see all of this slide because the pictures are in the way. But I think it was just announced that the consortium, the adoption and public housing sub-accounts are now online. So there is money for programs that encourage adoption of broadband or the use of broadband. It could be applications for hotspots or netbooks, as well as a public housing sub-account that could help farmer housing build a more robust system for internet.
County representatives, is this something that you're moving ahead on applying for these? Are you,
At this point in time, the consortia is, the consortia has just provided the consortia's work plan for the next year or two. And the county has not, I mean, that's occupying the time of the county to this point. With regard to the adoption and public housing sub-accounts, we'll examine what our options are, I believe.
I just see the April, June, and July 22nd time periods up there, and we're there. So it would be nice to know that we are things are in hand, and applications are being made in a timely manner, so that we won't miss out on a chance for those kinds of dollars.
And the county has engaged with West Business Services around some grant applications, and we have had conversations about some of the adoption possibilities, whether it be the CASA fund or not. So I'm not sure whether or not there's been, I mean, there needs to be follow-up meetings to see whether or not those are our best options, but there has been some preliminary discussion. And I would open it up to Supervisor Williams or Darcy if they have more to add. Hearing none,